Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 401 show. It is episode numero dos today. What's the date today? January 24th?
January 24th, yeah.
We are joined by the regular crew on site. To my left, Kelly Jean. To her left, someone that's not on camera at this moment, but will be in a second. Sydney, you're joining us today. And buried in the background is Charles, who's really the engine of everything we're going to be doing, so be very nice to him.
All right.
Tony, Shaltus, and Jimmy behind the camera. And we are testing out Meigs on Skype. Can you hear us so far?
Guys?
Can we hear you?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep.
Here.
Yeah.
Nice.
Here.
Is that going to sound better like to the regular people?
Say that, yes.
Why would I say that?
Good.
Party
Should I go to
call.
the timeout corner?
Yes.
All
you're
right.
a bad student today.
All
aren't
right.
you?
Apparently I am.
Gonna put a
But I'm doing my
dubstep.
best. So 401 show, we are a Detroit show, but we are broadcasting not from Detroit to Detroit, but from Detroit to Earth. And every week we're going to cycle through one of our taglines. For whatever reason, today I chose this one, which is, if you don't know you are in a spiritual war, you're losing badly. Another thing you guys are going to get, especially Eric and Kelly Jean and anyone else that might join us, is they don't really have college courses for what we're going to talk about, but this really would be a college level course. It's a 45-part course. In some facets, we call it a 45-part trial where you guys are the jury. And there is a subplot of believers versus non-believers. Right, Meigs?
Righto.
Okay. So she's got about a 2-second delay.
It's okay, I have it too.
I have it without Skype. I'm with you. So, look, if you're listening right now, or if you come across this at some point in the future, there's a good chance that your eyes have started to open up to a few things. And I think everyone at this table, and even Sydney, even though we're just officially meeting now, I've actually heard you on air before.
Great.
You impressed me with an interview you did with, do you remember, you know the interview I'm talking about?
I do not. I
haven't
know
told her
what
yet,
one
so
I'm
how to-
proud of specifically, but I don't know if it's reached the audience that I would have liked it to where you would have heard it or not. So I'm not sure which one you're talking about.
Okay, so we nailed that one down. It was that interview.
She's done so
Great.
many interviews.
But in general, I think you know the topics of this show. This isn't
I
like,
am ecstatic.
so these are things you
Woo.
can identify with on some level.
Absolutely. I even
right.
like went around out of my way. I didn't have much time to prepare for the show, but on the way here and everything, I pulled up things to reference, so I'm not just speaking out of.
Good girl.
Oh yeah, no. I don't go off of emotions and personal opinions, although I respect them. And I'm a human being, so I feel for them, and I feel for people.
This is what impressed me when I listened to you the first time. Articulate, well-spoken, and I don't know where you are on the spectrum of, I started by looking into 9/11, which that is where it opened my eyes. I ended up getting all the way to the Bible. I think you're there. I think Meigs got there.
9/11 was the gateway drug to truth.
Yeah, I mean, because it's obvious.
So
It's
many
the
of us.
most documented big day in American history. Okay, Pearl Harbor, JFK, Oklahoma City, these things. Yes, but this was seen live by the world, and the world was tricked on
Big time.
purpose. And we're going to find out over time how and why. What's that, Meigs?
Utterly bamboozled. Right?
Exactly. And
The
it was
masses.
for an agenda that was much higher than just getting terrorism.
The plan's going well.
Yeah.
It
I
actually...
mean, they're actually, this is what they wanted. Everybody thinks
Yes.
that, our economy's, everything's failing. This is what they wanted.
No,
right?
we're going to understand how, if we can get to it today, it's going to be tough. But if I would like to do a breakdown. That's why I gave you a calculator, and I got Meigs on backup calculator.
All right.
Because we're going to talk about where the Illuminati or the establishment or the Cabal or the Synagogue of Satan, they have many names throughout history.
They.
Where they. Or,
They.
you
I
know
call-
when you
just call
used to
them they.
reference when you were growing
The
up, well,
man.
they don't want
Sure.
you to. They
I
really
do it all
does
the time.
exist. I used to think it was just some dudes in someone's basement. But no, they're organized. highly organized, but very nebulous. They're like an amoeba-like organization. You don't really know where they begin or end.
Yep.
And it's not like they have a banner outside their office saying, Illuminati, World Takeover Center here.
But they do.
If
you know what
that
you're
is
looking for.
their mission,
Yeah.
without a doubt. And they are much, much closer than most people can fathom until you get into the matrix and really start looking at it. So there's going to be this ongoing discussion. Debate is probably even too strong of a word, that has got people that have opened their eyes to a few things, and half of us here have gone what I would consider to the final layer of the onion, to where there is light at the end of the tunnel, which for me is the Bible. I mean, I'm going to talk about that, and I'm open on many levels. I mean, it's going to be hard to impossible really to convince me otherwise at this point. But I will say this, before I got into all
I'm
of this.
on the exact opposite spectrum as you.
Really?
Yeah.
Well,
I'm going to need a lot of convincing.
I needed a lot. Oh, dude, I studied this, and I was able to research full time. This was 12 hours a day for almost a full year before it finally hit me, wait a minute, what they're talking about, everything I'm looking at, all this 9/11, the Federal Reserve, this was all predicted in the Bible. This is biblical, and these people literally praise Lucifer. Now, we're going to show that. So today what I want to do is, let's just sort of, does anyone in this room disagree with the fact that there is an evil cabal that is trying to take over the world? Is anyone here not on board with that?
No, I'm good with that.
You are good with that.
I'm good with that.
You said take over the world?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
New
Control.
World order.
Yeah.
Okay.
They pretty
I
much
can
already
agree with
do.
that.
they do.
It's
pretty
in
much already
place. It's already in place.
It's in place more. Like
People are unaware of the fact that it's in place, but it's definitely in place. Like you said, it's not on a banner anywhere, but if you are intellectual enough to research and figure out where your hard work and money is going, then you will know. All you got to do is ask questions and wonder, why do I pay all these taxes and where do they really go?
Great lead.
Why is my car falling in this ginormous pothole in the middle of Detroit when
there's
I
a-
pay all these taxes?
There's a part in your movie, Anatomy of a Great Deception, where you say that at our fingertips we have the world's biggest research library. At our fingertips, we can look anything up about anything. So and that's what I did, and Tony did the same thing too. After we left the movie that day, we started looking at stuff like that, and it opened. Tony's eyes were already open. That one opened my eyes a little bit more towards the whole conspiracy. And it's not even a conspiracy; it's the truth that there is a select group of individuals out there that are.
Well, the
We're
term
gonna
is
track them throughout history today.
But the term conspiracy theory, it's a hijack term. You know what I mean? Because it truly is conspiracies, but
Well, yeah,
you bring it
the
up.
term conspiracy now, I mean, it comes with
It's
all the
negative connotation.
It's all
subliminal.
encompassing.
Yeah.
It's the same as using words like alien or
They're basically
Jesus.
bullying
They're
us so
buzzwords.
we don't look
Yeah.
credible anymore
But
by
think
using
about-
these terms.
Think about it like this. 9/11, I don't care how you slice it. 9/11 was a conspiracy. Now, the question
yeah.
is, was it 19 guys in
Box
caves
cutters.
in Afghanistan that pulled this off, that cracked the Pentagon and all of our defense systems and kept the media quiet about it afterward? Or was the conspiracy, what I think we in this room believe, which it was done by people occupying position. I'm not even going to say Americans. These people, they do have a higher authority. And it's not the creator God. It is literally Lucifer, and that goes above their national oaths, the swearing on the flag, the swearing on it. It is above that, and we're going to show that today. So if you're out there and you're listening, odds are you've stumbled onto some of these things. We've all gone through this to varying degrees. It can be a lonely process because your circle of friends might not get it, so quickly or
They
be
most likely won't.
no, yeah, you could talk. You've had, we both have had that problem.
They have to see it
Tell
for
us a little bit
themselves.
about what happened with
Absolutely.
your circle of friends when you started to bring it up to them, Meeks.
Oh my gosh. Well, where are they now? I don't know where they went.
Where are they
It's
now?
like, where's that
Yeah,
meme with,
yeah,
like, some,
yeah. Well, it's
Homer
just
and-
certain social death. It is certain death if you start talking about 9/11, and then maybe the moon landing, and then God forbid you talk about Sandy Hook or something like that.
Or flat
Where
Earth.
it's all over the media, gaining sympathy for the the fake victims and whatever. And so it's really difficult to bring to people that, okay, maybe there's an other narrative that's not actually presented to us on the news that we can go for. We can pick our own. We can make up our own ideas about what we think about these things. We don't have to wait for the news to tell us. But yeah, it's like people. It's so hard to, introduce like any kind of conspiracy topics to people, because the knee-jerk response is just laughter and smirking and whatever, like dismiss it. You just dismiss it.
Right, and it doesn't matter how credible you are beforehand.
Sure.
Yeah,
you
and
will
it does
lose your
matter.
credibility. But the more
Yeah,
you say it, the funny thing is people they start to come back, and they come to circle back. And you just made a great point, Meigs, which is like and I used to do this all the time, but I would just come home, plop down, turn on the cable, and I have a menu of, basically 130 or 1,000 channels, whatever it is. It is finite. And we choose what information we'd like to get from. It's like a McDonald's menu. Everything on it is bad for you. Whereas, Eric, you brought up the fact we have access to every library that has ever existed in human history.
Ever.
Another little prediction in the Bible that after Israel's regathered, that knowledge of everything, including the Bible, would explode. I just find that odd. Crazy prediction.
Crazy.
All right, so we are going to play out, in some cases, the eye-opening process. By design, we are not all yes men. Because the people that are listening right now, they in their own lives are going to be in scenarios where they are talking to people that might not see the full picture or any of it, or not want to hear it. And there are ways to broach these subjects. Learn from our mistakes. I made a joke last week, and I'm sticking by this one. If you're starting to figure this out, do not wake up your spouse in the middle of the night at 2 a.m. to tell them that the CIA was made up of Nazis brought over from Nazi Germany, for instance.
Right.
Because they're not really going to care. In fact, they might care. In fact, when I was driving Betsy nuts when I was starting to wake up, and I was begging her, will you please just do some research? And she finally said, okay. And what she researched were therapists. and I'm like, okay. And I had to submit. I'm like, you know what? I don't know if a sane person can wonder if they're insane, but I'm like, all right, let's go see a therapist then. Fine. Yeah. She picked him out. It was her guy. She was certain the therapist was going to tell me to, shut this down. This is no good. And the therapist happened to be a 9/11 truther. So that sign from
Those
God.
are the best kind.
I know.
It's the only
That's
kind I would
amazing.
get
I had
therapy from.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you hit it.
I had a mobile therapy van called on me when I started telling my family about 9/11 and the plan for worldwide genocide.
Yeah, they were going to throw you in an institution, right?
Great.
I didn't know what was going on, but I told the therapist, I was like, do you know what's in Prozac? I was like, have you heard about fluoxetine? I was like, that's fluoride, guys. Did you hear about Tower 7? I started telling the therapist about.
Yeah, and she's writing in red note on her clipboard.
Like, have you guys heard of the New World Order?
Resident at the facility.
Of course they hadn't heard.
Gotcha. All right, so why the 401 show? Do you guys know why have I shared this with you guys, why we call it the 401 show?
You shared it with us. You haven't shared it with the public.
It is. I'll just give you another hint. It is based on gematria, where numbers have numerical values. We certainly see it in Latin.
Isn't that
we see it
like
in
a
Greek.
game you gamble on? Gematria?
Maybe.
No, I'm just kidding. Sorry, there's my jokes.
All right.
That's my joke for the day.
All right. Fulfilled. One joke per show. So 401 is the sum of alpha and omega. Alpha is 1. Omega has a value of 400. It's one of the numbers of Jesus Christ in the Bible, 401. Now, I have not done this research because, I just haven't done it. But gematrically speaking, is that even a word? All of his names add up to 401. I don't know if that is true or not, but it wouldn't surprise me if it were. Maybe Meigs, for an assignment, you can figure that one out for next week.
Hey, I'm on it.
We'll still keep the
Homework.
show 401, because at the end of the day, from my perspective, all of human history, everything, everything is about one man, one person, one entity that was here. The most famous one that has ever existed, and that is Jesus Christ. Because if he is who he said he is, shows like this become very important. And it means also that many of us, like I was, were living literally on the verge of catastrophic devastation, unknowingly.
Okay.
So basically,
Unknowingly.
it's my way of saying that, because I never believed heaven and hell are real. I now absolutely believe it. And I think figuring that out, that is the meaning of life. That is, I just don't see what else could be more important. And once you figure this out, how do you do anything else? I mean, if all this is true and you end up coming to believe it like I have, how can you ever go back into the world to sell widgets again?
Well, isn't that a big reason
Do it with
why
a good
people
heart.
would
you don't wanna
follow
go to
the
heaven.
priesthood or become a reverend or a pastor
Some of them do it out of family tradition and not,
handed down?
yeah, like I consider myself very authentic because I was very anti-Bible into my 40s. And I'm no preacher or whatever. In fact, have you
you're
guys ever
learning.
seen the video of the two Jehovah's Witnesses? They knock on a door. Meigs, I showed this to you.
Yeah.
The guy's like, would you like to talk about Jesus today? And the guy living at home's like, sure, come on in. He's like, just go, keep walking in the back. And he has him walk into a construction area, which the back of his house leads to a cliff, and these two guys fall down a cliff.
Fall down
Not
the
making
cliff.
light of the message,
Different.
but I am not a fan of the preacherish Bible thumpery in your face, which is where I think Eric got the thought he shared last week, which is he feels like people that have embraced this belief, this whatever, are judgy, I think was your word, which I totally understand. And now a lot of that comes from this.
Especially born again. Like born again
Oh,
Christians.
no.
Those guys are the worst because, why, is that you, Meigs?
Yeah, Meigs and I are
Yeah.
both born again.
Well, yeah, but I mean, but
born
you
again
guys,
Christian though.
you guys aren't
I'm not
preachy
gonna judge
and
you.
in your face.
That
Like,
Well,
every other, like.
Hang on, but where do you get that impression?
Because I've had tons of them, recovering alcoholics that have found God, or my cousin's husband was one, and it was all about, I mean, in my face. And I think that's where I kind of got turned off on it, because it was right in my like late teens, 17, 18 years old, where this guy, you know, who I saw do many things illegal, all of a sudden found God, and he was like, you can't go down that path. And it was just one of them kind of like,
Hypocritical,
come on, dude.
uh,
Yeah, exactly. And it was just, but that wasn't the only one. It was a lot of other people that kind of turned me off on it too.
I can agree. People use it as an excuse, honestly, a lot. And that, like, oh, these certain things aren't accepted in the Bible, and so they can treat people poorly for those reasons. I feel like there's good people and there's bad people. It doesn't matter whether you're Christian or whatever you are. But I feel like they use that as a mask for a way to treat people badly. And
Well, I have
there's
a
no
story.
excuse for that. I don't care who said it. Even
have
if
a
it
story
was,
about my
excuse
mother.
me, but if I offend anybody, but I don't care even if Jesus Christ tells me that, like, I can't, or it's bad to, like, do these certain things. I'm not going to look at somebody badly because somebody else told me that and it's written in this book thousands of years ago. I don't care.
Why judge other
Personally,
people
And if
if
you're
they
going to
haven't
go by
found
what's in the
saving-
book, it also basically says, don't make a big
there's a
deal
lot
about
of
your
things in that book
religiosity,
that are
'cause
very hypocritical, and I'm just going to say that, just like there is in the law. So it's like,
maybe. I'm not going to stipulate to that one yet, but I understand the viewpoint without a doubt, because I had it.
I just don't agree with a lot of things that are written in it, and I think that they're skewed from maybe the original message.
Amen.
And all I'm going to say is maybe that's not the original Bible and that's not the original message. That's what I agree with personally. But I say this with an unbiased point of view where I have never purposely opened that book in my life.
Yeah, I was there too.
But I'm being led to it. Okay, so I'm not against
Yeah,
it.
it's not, look, little things even by being here today. I used to think this was just random chance. It's actually, I really don't believe it is. Like,
I don't either.
there's a few moments in our life where something's going to get thrown at you and you are going to, like
I've
Eric and
referenced
Kelly
the
don't
book
know
and it's
this.
helped me. You know.
These guys you guys are going to be, in a lot of ways, this is out of the box. You're going to be without excuse, because by the time we get done with this show, well,
We'll have
it's not just a
facts.
45-episode show, but I'm curious to see what happens within 1 year. Like, where are you guys now? We're going to track it. You know, we're gonna observe it.
Well, I wanted to talk about the judgy subject real quick with my family. My mom's family was always very religious, and they were very judgy. We had to dress a certain way. You know, we weren't allowed to do a lot of certain things. It was very strict. Then when I became a dancer, they totally threw me under the bus. I was the black sheep of the family. Oh, my gosh. Oh. You know, then my one cousin came out and she's gay. So then she was the black sheep of the family. Oh, it was a big deal.
Someone took my
You
crown.
know, like, just judgy. And then my mom, when she became a born again, like, she was in denial of everything cool about herself. Like, I would say, yeah, you know, I learned to dress all up and get cute because you and Aunt Kathy would get all dressed up and go to the bars on the weekends. My mom, I never did that. Like, okay.
Right. Like,
just
almost
because
ashamed.
you found the Lord and you're following that path doesn't mean that you're allowed to make excuses for your past like that. You know,
I
or
feel
just
like
to,
that shame is brought upon people,
It's
and it's like
crazy.
they're scared to be human. You know, everybody's human. I don't care where you're from or whatever. And those things are natural things to feel and do throughout someone's life. Like, and I just feel like we can never judge a place that a person's at in their life.
We don't walk in their shoes.
Yeah, whether we've been there or not. And, you know, some people have to lead a certain life to learn a certain lesson. And maybe they'll
you guys
grow.
actually, whether you realize it or not, you just rephrased one of Jesus Christ's most virulent messages, which is, if you're going to try and show on the outside that you're like this holy religious person, this is what the problem he had with all the Pharisees.
Yeah.
Because they acted clean, but inside they were dirt, and he wasn't afraid to call them out in the public square. Now, ultimately, that got him.
Excuse me. I was wondering what's a Pharisee, because I want to understand what you're
A
saying.
Pharisee is it is like the ruling government of the Hebrew people. That would be like
Oh,
the
okay.
Pope would be the head of the Catholic Church. Caiaphas in
Herod-
Jesus' day
Herod
was the
too,
head
right?
of the Pharisees. These were the
Herod was
these
the king,
were
that's
the
right.
the religious, the priests that were there to observe, quote unquote, the law. Because what were
Okay.
the Jews chosen to do? Why are they God's chosen people? And they're not chosen to have a great life. They're not chosen to, to make more money. They were chosen to hand down God's word to the rest of the planet. That's what they were chosen to do. And these Pharisees got so wrapped up in dressing properly for church
Yeah.
and publicly praying, and they
Looking
would
good to the public.
right,
You know.
but inside they were the intent of their heart, which for me that is where, Sydney, you said some people are good, some are bad, and I think we actually have to go even further down, because I think good and bad cuts through the heart of everybody.
Yeah.
There's the best of us, Mother Teresa, let's say, had bad in her. And
I don't
the
even know
worst of
about her
us-
though.
What's
If you
that?
Look up her she's not as great as they make her out to be.
No, it's
But-
an example. Hitler, who most people would put at the other end of the spectrum, he had good in him too. And none of those two and everyone in between is clean enough to get into God's clean room, which is why this whole crazy, hard to understand process had to unfold over thousands of years, which is coming to a conclusion rapidly. So this is a big deal.
The end is coming.
It's not the end, but
Should I get my bucket
it is
list rolling?
going. There's going to be a change in the way life occurs on Earth. I'm not saying like in 18 months or in 10 years. It could be tomorrow. It could be 20, 30 years.
It is rapidly shifting at this
I don't know
moment.
about 1,000 years, buddy.
It is
Well,
rapidly
I don't
shifting
even know about
at
100. I
this
think
moment.
this is something we're going to see in our life. We were given signs to tell us the season. Maybe not the specific day, but we know it's like we're heading into the fall here. It's,
Winter is coming.
Yeah. So look, if heaven and hell are real, this show's a big deal for you. I mean, this is...
So we're leading up to Revelations, is what you're basically
Oh, we'll
saying.
be in there for sure.
Okay, well, when I was little, my grandma, who was totally fanatically religious. She scared the life out of me with religion.
Oh.
I swear to God, she would say that God is this big, huge man that lived in the sky, and he looked down on all of us, and he could hear all your thoughts. And like, I'd be on the toilet or something, and is he watching me? Like, you know, like scared as a little kid. And then she'd be like, Revelations, you know, and I'm like 5, and she's like putting this in my head. I was warped feeling about it.
Yeah, and then it doesn't happen, so part of the teenage rebellion comes out.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And then you just, it's easy to follow the crowd or do what I want or bring your self gratification.
Oh yeah, that's exactly
but then
what I
there's a
did.
certain point that you start seeing the other side.
Yeah, we're a rookie show. This is for people that are just starting to open their eyes. I mean, once your eyes are open, there's other guys that will take the baton, like the Stephen Quayles of the world or the Russ Disd. I mean, that's where you start to really see, oh my God, how this whole thing operates.
I can't be related to Dan Quayle, right?
No.
You never know. They might be.
Michigan State, Brad.
So look, this show at the end of the day, one of our taglines is the Ephesians 5:11 operation. Like the show is about, at the end of the day, I think we're going to find that for a reason, the whole world does view Jesus Christ as this dividing line. I think we're going to end up finding that.
What's the Ephesians 5:11 was the?
It is, do not
Don't
participate.
participate in the fruitless deeds of darkness, but rather expose them.
Yep. And so the 401 show, it's about the enemy that Jesus Christ came to save us from and how he does. Like, because I always used to wonder, what do you mean Jesus? How has he saved me? Like, how, I don't get it. What did he come to save us from?
Ourselves.
But in a lot of ways, yes. So today, if everything goes well, I was gonna go into the ancient origins of money. We'll probably end up focusing more on recent history, banking, international banking, and if we have time, I want to do a demonstration for you guys of how the Federal Reserve works with the Treasury.
Just the island thing that you did for me, that
with more detail. I don't think we did the one. Did we do the one in detail where we played it out over a 50-year period of time?
Yeah, you didn't go like in depth, but yeah, you did it in the 50
This
years.
was a whole show where like this is why we're going to need a calculator.
You broke it
today.
down. You broke it down like on a half-hour show with me when I brought you in.
Okay, then we're going to go a little deeper today. So it's once you see it on paper where it starts to really hit you. So we're going to be focusing on these bankers, all right? Because these are not regular bankers. This is not a teller, and this is not a mortgage banker, and this is not your typical vice president at Fifth Third Bank, okay? The kinds of bankers I'm talking about, these are what are called the central bankers or the international bankers. These are hyper-powerful people. These are the most wealthy families in the world. They dwarf the net worth of Bill Gates. And I'm going to show you how much their true wealth really is and how it is that they can control a nation from behind the scenes where no one knows about it. If we're lucky, we're going to get into all of that. So this group, these bankers, there's a lot of names that start to get associated with the activities of this group. They operate under lots of different banners, the CFR, the Trilateral Commission, the Bilderbergs, what's the place in San Francisco where they have their meetings?
Bohemian Grove.
Bohemian Grove, thank you.
Oh, man.
But let me just say it like this. We're
stuff over
not
there.
going to pull up the images, but I was going to show you certain images that have been on currency from the beginning of time.
That's where I have these tattooed all over my body.
What's that?
That's a number 13. I like numerology, too.
All right. So like I said, this is a spiritual war that is actually unfolding even in this room as we speak.
It happens to be on the dollar numerous times.
It is. There's the
13?
demonic symbolism on a dollar. I mean, it's so in our face, we don't even see it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But little images like the owl, the Nazi eagle, you can find these things going all the way back to the days of Babylon. Follow the symbols. And for there to be, I mean, you find owls from the Babylonians to the Greeks to the Romans.
Ooh, owls.
To today. Like we've got one on
an
our...
owl tattooed on me because I love owls.
I'm like excited to learn about it, though. I don't know about
I know,
that
me
part.
too.
So look, Satan has controlled
Satan?
money from day one.
Right.
And I think that's why there are places in the Bible where it says you can't serve money and God. And I totally get it because I used to serve money. You can't do them both. Doesn't mean you can't have money, but you can't serve
It's
both
true.
because you're a double agent, so to speak.
Can I say something?
Sure.
Okay, so to me, instead of thinking God, I think of like serving like the universe, because I don't think of like one specific God. Because I want to think of, like I said, I'm thinking from an unbiased standpoint. I'm not a tall, white American woman. I'm every person that ever existed. So for me, I think of like the soul of the universe as a whole. What would be good for not just me, but everybody? You know what I'm saying? When I think of something like that. So I think of like serving my soul, thus serving everyone else, you know, in that. That goes kind of hand in hand versus chasing money and what's falsely often referred to as success.
What is often referred to? What is falsely?
Falsely often referred to as success. Like the money being
Right. Okay.
That's all I was like saying for me, instead of like the options being God and money. I think of like almost like serving the universe as a whole, because I don't believe in one specific person.
Understood. Now, we all carry our own beliefs. What we believe has nothing to do with the truth. Because I used to think the truth will bend to what I believe. So maybe let's find out, is it the universe we are talking to? Or do you just supplant the word God with universe and then it makes sense? Or throughout history there were multiple gods that...
No, that's
That's what I'm saying. I want to get to the
that's
bottom.
what I believe, but also, like I said, I'm still trying to be unbiased. So I believe there was every god that these like, and I don't know the term, so that's why I'm
like
not
the Greeks and the Romans,
exactly
like the Jupiters and the Zeuses.
Yes.
And,
So excuse me, my lack of knowledge, but I don't want to say something wrong. So, yeah, everyone believed that. I believe in those people too. Every Bible that they had.
well, they're real entities.
Yeah, I
They're
would
just-
love to learn though. I believe they have a common thread.
They do.
Is what I'm getting
They're
at.
the demons that fell from heaven. And Satan does the same thing with them that he does with humanity, is he has them battle each other. To the strongest go the spoils. And his kingdom is based on fear, hate, and power. The opposite, well, there's more power in heaven, but it is not a place, it's devoid of things like hate.
Right.
Meigs, any thought on any of this so far?
Yes, the minions of Satan's kingdom, which I never used to believe existed, are so good at masquerading as angels of light and fluffy, amazing, rainbow-looking creatures and spirit guides and whatever, and they'll be your best friend until you realize their true nature.
I
That's
totally
a great
agree
point
with you.
because
We
when-
just all got to be careful, you know. I used to be an equal opportunity spirituality person too. You know, I just didn't know at first, but eventually, you know, I just studied Christianity more. I was like, oh, there's a history of all this stuff. There's an accounting for why all these different gods are in the world. You know, it all makes sense actually when you look at Genesis.
But what's funny is we would expect that when we run into a demon of some sort, we're expecting something scary and hateful.
Yeah.
Here's what's strange is throughout the whole Bible, and you can observe this in life today, when we interface with demons, knowingly or not, it's almost always a good, friendly, warm feeling. So when you go to a medium and you think you're talking to your dead grandmother, you're really not. Even though that might feel great, you're actually just talking to an entity that's been around.
There was a movie with Keanu Reeves. Sorry to interrupt you. With Keanu Reeves.
Constantine?
No, and Al Pacino, Devil's Advocate or
Yeah.
something like that.
Oh.
Where all those people were demons, like that worked for the farm. Al Pacino was the devil. You know what I mean?
Go see the movie that had Rowdy Roddy Piper in it.
Oh, I
They
love that.
Live.
They Live. Yeah,
See,
that's one
some
of the
of
greatest
those
movies.
the truth is hidden in science fiction, and once you figure out that these guys, it serves so many agendas when they make a movie about something like that. Because then, if you do find it in real life, oh, you're just saying what was in
Right.
that movie, man.
There's
like
a reason.
you are auto-categorized into this dismissed psycho category, which It's good. It's good. They're not dumb.
Oh, you've just been looking at Dan Brown books. That's why you care about Freemasonry. You just read some Dan Brown books or something.
Right.
Like, my gosh.
Okay, so we're going to look at a little of. So we just glossed over ancient history, but it's been very clear. I mean, I never understood why God had such a problem. Like, he wouldn't let his people charge interest, and I'm going to show you why that's so bloody dangerous. Hopefully we can get to it. He went out of his way. You can't serve money and God is the root of all evil. It's not money, it's the love of money. Big difference.
It's the energy you give to it.
And did you guys know that Jesus Christ actually lost his temper once?
Yeah.
This was a surprise to me.
changers.
Yeah, right? When he
who
walked into that,
the temple.
Yeah.
His father's house. The second
Yes.
temple that it has now been destroyed. They're building the third one. Something he predicted that would happen 2,000 years ago, that this temple would be destroyed, and soon after this nation is dispersed, it'll be regathered in a long-ass time, and they were going to start to build a third temple. Just another...
yeah, I've seen
Are
Jesus
they
Christ
building
Superstar.
now? Are they building the third temple now?
It's hard to know for
Okay.
sure.
Yeah.
But there's a... Let's hold that off, because I don't know for a
Yep.
fact. And maybe Meigs can look that up right now to see if they are in fact doing anything
I have
like
one
that.
more
On it.
question. Wasn't Lucifer like God's best friend or something, or like right hand man at one point?
Yep.
Lucifer was really the manager of God's kingdom. He ran all of the worship for God. And he got to the point when he was the most beautiful, most intelligent, created being. Now keep in mind, Jesus was not created somehow, and I don't understand how this works completely. But he was a part of God. It's almost, there wasn't like a creation date. He's been here since eternity and will be, he's a forever. So Satan is a lower class of being, but of the created being, of all the beings that have ever been created by God, he apparently is the most intelligent, most beautiful, most capable. And it got to the point, and I don't think this was an accident, by the way, because I used to, well, if God's perfect, why was there a rebellion in heaven? All right? Explain that one to me. But see, you can't have good without evil. You can't measure it. You can't. It's an unbalanced equation. And I think, something happened in that Garden of Eden where God, we're not on the same plane as he is. He's all light now. And, you turn on a bright enough light in this room, there will be no shadows left. And shadows, darkness. And we have inherited this dark, passed down by DNA. Which is funny. Things that were written in the Bible 2,000, 3,000 years ago, we now can actually see them scientifically where, here again, this was, God talking, I will punish your descendants to the third and fourth generation. I'm like, what kind of God is going to punish my great-great-grandson for something I did? And it's not so much that he's actually actively doing it, but the system that is the computer program of our DNA, what makes up the essence of our life. See, if I go, we found, this is an incredible finding, but if I go commit a murder, like if I go commit a murder today after my son Brady's been born, Brady will not have a scar on this particular DNA sequence, this genome. However, if I have children after Brady, after I've committed a murder, there will be a scar on this genome, which actually will give him a proclivity towards either committing the same crime or, ironically, going in the opposite direction.
And now imagine that on a greater scale where our whole society's been manipulated, every piece of it. Can you imagine that? And then imagine what makes up us, our DNA, what we eat, what we do, what we're surrounded by. And we're already predisposed to this stuff. We don't have a choice as soon as we're out of the womb. So, and before that even, as soon as we're out of the womb, we're fighting against it, basically, if you're aware of it.
We are born into a fallen world.
And our DNA has been manipulated so much so by our prior generations. And we, absolutely have no control of that, obviously. But the point is being aware of, once you know, I'm saying when we're first born, you know, obviously we have no control. And then, but we do, once we're aware of that, we can break that chain and we can actually manipulate your own DNA using your own energy and healing naturally. And that's what has been manipulated in the masses, creating a miscommunication. And that's what causes things like cancer. It's a miscommunication in cells that creates cancer. You manipulate one fine thing in a society as a whole, and there's a miscommunication between the people, and that causes cancer in the masses. The universe, I look at as a diamond. Everybody's a facet. You know, we all see different points of view. But
That's great.
We all make up this diamond, right?
Parable of the blind men.
If we miscommunicate, you know what I'm saying? That's what's creating this cancer and this hatred and this. It's in ourselves that we have to correct, but we're projecting these things
like
that we have to fight within ourselves on the world outward, and therefore it'll never be corrected. You know, we have to focus on ourselves. It's the only thing you can really do to help others. Once you,
for the most part, I'm with you on that. And you're right about, there's two things you said. One of them, I mean, look, the DNA thing, that is now, genetic biology has proven this out.
It's just degenerating through time.
So if we really do pass down scars on our DNA, and Adam and Eve, if they, you know, someone had to be the first human, whether it was Adam and Eve out of the Bible, or you think it was two little simple cells that were Adam and Eve, let's just table that for now. But if you do pass on these genetic, in a sense, defects to your offspring, then biology now is actually doing what all of science says it should do, which is we are breaking down. But the theory of evolution would posit that we are building up. And it would be the only science to all fields of study that I know about in which the laws of thermodynamics actually get broken, because information seems to be organizing itself with humanity, whereas everywhere else entropy happens, which is things break down. All right, so is there, we got a break in how many minutes? 4. All right. So let's just do a couple quotes from history so we don't go thinking that we invented the Illuminati because Dan Brown made a movie about it. Because what they do is when people start to get onto something, they do go make a movie about it, because they co-opt the conversation.
Yep. You direct the story the way you want people to perceive it.
Okay, you guys remember Bronner's soap?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm going to throw out some quotes from some people. This is from a book that I'm writing. These are regular people like me that found this evil thing that is so big they had to drop what they were doing and change their life to talk about it. So Bronner's soap, you know, he was kind of a mini hero. Here was his quote. He said this in 1952. "There is a sinister network of subversive agents, godless, intellectual parasites working in our country today whose ramifications grow more extensive, more successful, and more alarming each new year, and whose true objective is to demoralize, paralyze, and destroy our great republic from within if they can, according to their own plan for their own possession." Okay, so Dr. Bronner, he's one guy. Here is a guy named Francois Charles de Berkheim. This is 1814. He put together a report for Napoleon Bonaparte. This guy was a police inspector, and if I'm thinking about the right one, there was a rider on a horse carrying a secret message to Mazzetti. I'll think of the name later. Anyhow, this is how God works. This secret message going between Masonic societies, offices, because they didn't communicate publicly back then. Now they can communicate publicly because there's so much white noise we don't see it because of the forest.
So there was a miscommunication, almost.
Well, I think
like the two people
the
could
rider
not communicate.
was struck by lightning, and that's how this police officer stumbled upon these plans. You know, this happened a couple times in history. Another incident in another 55 years was the Albert Pike letter. Now that one was also intercepted because the courier was struck by lightning, and the letter came to light in 1871, where these Lucifer-following people inside the American government were saying, well, we got to have 3 world wars. 1871. The First World War has got to be against, it's got to be Germany's got to get overthrown, and the Second World War has to introduce Russia as a player on the world scene as an equal balance, and the Third World War will be about the reestablished nation of Israel, and it will be between Islam and the us, which is 1871. Israel wasn't even a country yet.
I have a question. Do you think they would announce when there's a World War III? Because they don't really have banners.
We're already in it.
Exactly. No, that's my point.
When
Do
we
you think
take-
they would say like, "Hey, there's a World War III going on"?
Yeah.
I'm just bringing that up. I would like the audience
spot
to
on.
note that
You're
point.
spot on, yeah.
When the U.S. takes the nuclear strike.
All right, I want to get a couple more of these, then we'll go to break. I just want to set the stage that these characters have been operating all throughout history. This is not something we just figured out, in 2001. So Berkheim, in 1814, this was his report to Napoleon. And he's summarizing how it is that this hyper-powerful cabal is hidden from the general public. And he writes, these are the methods by which the Illuminati, without any apparent organization, without settled leaders, agree together from the banks of the Rhine to those of the Neva, from the Baltic to the Dardanelles, and advance continually towards the same goal without leaving any trace that might compromise the interests of the association or even bring suspicion on any of its members. The most active police would fail before such a combination. That's 1814.
I don't understand that last line. The most active police would
Meaning
fail.
they couldn't even discover it.
Oh,
He
So
discovered it
Great.
by accident.
great.
No,
That's
the
actively
internet
going on too.
The internet now has solved that problem for us. For a brief window in time, we have access to. We can actually go see the mimeocopies of these letters, the photographed letters that appeared in the newspapers of the time. So you guys remember I mentioned Larry McDonald last week? He was the congressman that got up, and he was very clear about the fact that the Rockefellers are behind this Luciferian organization. They are trying to take over the world. We've got
Zionists.
to wake up. He was with Steve Sims, another congressman, who said, and we're going to explain how this is possible, who said the American people do not understand to the extent to which their tax dollars are being used to create their own prison.
That's
So,
what I brought up earlier.
Larry McDonald, he gets it. He starts talking about this. Larry McDonald's on a flight in 1981 that happens to have Richard Nixon on it. Strangely, not scheduled, the plane lands in Anchorage. Richard Nixon is pulled off the flight. KAL Flight 007 takes back off, supposedly heads into Russian airspace and is shot down. Okay? Now, we are taught to believe these are random accidents by humans, whereas my world belief now is that was a message being sent to someone who, you're going to speak out about this? We'll bring down the whole plane.
Of course.
Now, let's hear what a Russian KGB agent named Yuri Bezmenov had to say about this incident. Because he said this in 1983, 2 years after KL flight was shot down. Yuri said, the Korean airline incident, KL 007, from my point of view, is not a quote-unquote incident at all. I believe it was carefully planned and premeditated provocation. I'm not sure whether they killed 268 people just to get rid of Larry McDonald, but it's feasible. I wouldn't be surprised if they killed more than 60 million of their own men just to implement rotten ideals of Marx and Engels. What would 268 people matter? Second, it was not a military blunder. The order was not given by the military. The order was given by a civilian in the party apparatus of the highest caliber. Illuminati member in Russia. And I wouldn't be surprised if it was Yuri Andropov. And in any case, Andropov knew perfectly well what was going on. So here's a guy that he doesn't know our politics. In fact, one of his jobs as a KGB agent was to assimilate into the West and to bring communism. He ended up defecting. And he spoke about what was going on behind the scenes with that incident. But even inside of the Russian borders, they couldn't figure out who gave the okay for this airline to be brought down. But their president at the time is sitting there having to apologize on national news because he doesn't even have time to figure it out. Obviously, it was done by a craft that had a Russian insignia on it. These people are very, very powerful. Walter Cronkite, he said this in 1976. The Rockefellers are the epitome of the nation's permanent establishment, capital E. Now, that's the word for the Illuminati from the 60s and early 70s. Governments change, economics fluctuate, foreign alliances shift, but the Rockefellers prevail. I'll do one more and then we'll take break. This is Curtis Dahl. Now, Curtis Dahl, if I remember correctly, he was the son-in-law of Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Here's his quote. Hang on, I'll tell you the backstory of this quote first. It came in 1968. The backstory is, it's hard to imagine the courage it took for a person from a prominent family like his in confessing this dark secret. He opened with, it was very hard for me to realize that Eleanor Roosevelt, to whom I was very close for a number of years, could wittingly play a leading role in the Internationalists' United Nations team. That's actually another way to say the international bankers. They are behind the UN.
That is
So his wife had a... I'm sorry, I'm like confirming. That's what you're saying? His wife was in on it?
So the son-in-law of Franklin Delano Roosevelt was saying, I am having a very hard time believing
I honestly believe it.
So this was in his... this was in an autobiography, in a biography of his father-in-law, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and he says this about the United Nations. This was 1968. Basically, the UN is but a long-range international banking apparatus clearly set up for financial and economic profit by a small group of powerful one-world revolutionaries.
It's always one.
Hungry for profit and power? Obviously, the real objectives of one-world government leaders and their ever-close bankers are most devious. They have now acquired full control of the money and credit machinery of the United States of America by the creation and establishment of the privately owned Federal Reserve Bank, which we're going to talk about in the second half. They now plan to uproot and to gradually destroy the spiritual background of all peoples. Initially, Christianity is the prime target, then Judaism. You know, funny. Those are God's religions, essentially. Then all other religions. The bleak program is absolutely necessary for them to complete, if possible, before they can reach godless power, aimed to benefit a few, but to make assembly line puppets out of us, the many. So he's sitting here talking about his view of this plan, that, holy cow, these guys are really trying to bring the world into this one world religion, which is odd, because the book of Revelation said that's exactly what this snake-like creature would try doing about 70 years after. It would come into effect about a generation after the reestablishment of Israel, which happened in 1948.
Purposefully.
And it is all being done because Satan is going to get us to do what he tried to usurp God's throne to do, which is to get the praise of everybody. And he is going to, once you understand it, you see, we all think we're playing checkers, but when you understand we're playing chess, Sydney, this kind of goes to something you said earlier, you realize we're checkmated. You know you're going to get checkmated 3 moves from now. There's no way out. There is no way to win.
Unless you create a way. That's the only...
Or you find a way, which maybe it's God pulling your little piece off the chessboard.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're already
metaphorically is very true, because without him, my opinion is we're lost. So why don't we take a break? 5 minutes or so? Sound good?
Good.
And when we come back, we are going to do a little breakdown. Exactly how does this financial power manifest itself? I'm going to show you how to take over a nation in 50 years by controlling their currency. We'll be right back.
Bam.
401 show.
Whoop.
All right, so we're going to do a very watered-down example of how currency manipulation, how you can control a population without them knowing it. Okay. Now, you guys have all heard these terms, like I just referenced Larry McDonald. Our tax dollars are being used to build our prisons. These bankers are evil, okay? But do you guys really understand how our money, what happens with money at its creation and its highest levels?
Yeah, I want to know if people know the system that the money's based upon.
Okay.
That's
I have a
a very
general idea.
interesting thing, because as soon as we're born, it starts actually with our birth certificate.
Whoa, good girl,
Yeah,
because
they give you that
the
registered
amount that's
name
in our
and
money
number.
supply is actually tied to the
We're collateral, so
formation
everybody
of a
has
social
different
security number.
Everybody has we're all different.
Great lead-in. Okay. So we are going to imagine a make-believe nation. We're going to call this nation Sheepland. All right?
Sheepland.
Just what I came up with. Now, we're going to simplify this a little bit. And let's assume a few things that aren't too far away from our society. There's 1,001 people in this country. The population will not change, okay? Just bear with me. The average income for every citizen in Sheepland is $30,000 a year, okay? The average tax rate is 20%. Y'all following me so far?
Yep.
We are not going to talk about growth. We're not going to talk about inflation. We're not going to talk about fractional reserve banking. We are just going to talk about the relationship between the U.S. Treasury Department and the Federal Reserve Bank. What goes on between these two guys that has all of these senators, congressmen, and the father of Charles Lindbergh specifically, the night before the 1913 Federal Reserve Act was passed, screaming to Congress saying, if we pass this, our day of reckoning will come. And it will come sooner than we realize. 100 years later, we are at the precipice right now. Okay, so we are going to, this is hypothetical, and we're going to essentially set up a nation. Now, outside of Israel, no nation has really ever been created by a vote, okay? Normally, they're more organic tribes clumped together, and they become whatever. That doesn't matter. By the way, the vote thing was predicted in the Bible also, that it would be the only nation ever.
I learned all this from Chimatica. I think that's what it was called.
Chimatica?
Did you watch that?
Yeah,
Chimatica, is that what
I
it was
share it
called?
all the time because
It explains all the Federal Reserves and stuff.
and it explains all the Bibles, the different
Yeah.
the origins of everything, and Babylon and the
It's a good one to
language and the
watch.
brokenness of everything. It explains all that.
Well, you
Cliff
were
Notes.
right that the Bible we have today is not. For starters, what were the scriptures in the days of Jesus had much more in them.
Okay.
But we've had, it was a council, I want to say Laodicea, not Nicaea, where about 30-some books, almost a third of the Bible,
We're
was
destroyed, right? Or
not
something?
not destroyed, but were removed from
yeah,
circulation.
why?
Right.
Yeah,
Well,
why?
very
Like
interesting.
Mary had her own chapter, didn't
Now, who was behind this? Remember, the
Catholics.
Roman Caesars, that was one of the Bible
So
had
you
said
believe in the
Rome.
original Bible?
she? Yeah.
I
right.
believe it is all true, and they all told us what was going to happen. And I totally get why anyone would be, oh, this is so impossible. We're looking at something really big. We are not going to walk out of here today getting it. This
Right.
is
Yeah.
every week
Opening the door.
we are painting dots on this. It's like a Seurat painting, all right? It's pointillism. When you're really up close to the painting, all you see is 12 dots. It means nothing to you. And if there's a
Right.
dot out here, a dot out there, you haven't put it together. It's only when you have enough dots and you back away that, oh, this image begins to form.
I'm just wondering though, do you have like what would you call it? Do you believe in the way this current Bible is written? Do you believe in that, or do you like? I don't believe in the way it's been. I feel like it's been tainted.
Well,
I
hang
do
on.
still take from it. Don't get me wrong.
You also,
I agree.
You're doing the same thing I did, which is I'd never read it. And I had very strong opinions about it, which
well, no,
might change
no.
if you're
Okay, so I don't have. I'm open to it. My thing is.
get closer to the mic.
Oh, excuse me. Okay, so I'm very open to it. My thing is I'm not for or against it, but I know that there's a lot of manipulations in it, and so I'm trying to get it from literally my own experiences. I
Right.
don't want to sit there and read something, and I can't. I literally just maybe I could apply myself and do it, but my point is I
You
want
need to see it and feel it.
when it comes to
Yes.
me at those right times. That's how I believe in it, and then maybe one day I will read the whole thing. I don't know, but
If God touches you, you're going to end up wanting to read it. And
I do read it when it's brought to me, and there's been lots of things that have been brought to me that are like life changing, and I do believe in them. But I also believe that where's the missing information that Where's the? I'm just. I
okay.
can't be happy with it.
Okay.
You
so
get what I mean? So
right now, for you, the Bible it's in this nice package, and you haven't even opened the box up, and you're worrying so much about what might be in there, might not be in there, based on speculation. I'm going to say, just hold that. Put it on a shelf.
I'm ignorant to it, and I'll admit that, and that's why I'm trying to learn.
Good. And look, you represent who I was. You represent a lot of the people listening here. I mean, that's where you're still trying to get your arms around. Could this book of myths actually be real?
I think it's real. I just feel like it's been changed, so I don't.
Okay.
That's all I feel about it. I'm not against it.
Tainted Bible.
I just feel like there's been manipulated, and that's exactly what destroys man.
Keep
so
in mind,
I just
if
don't
Satan was in
agree
enough
with it.
power 2,000 years ago to offer Jesus the world, he never lost the power, and he certainly controls our mainstream media. He controls the McDonald's
He
menu
controls
of our
everything.
cable channels.
including that Bible, I believe. So I think. So I don't know.
He's not that powerful. Remember,
Yeah,
God's
no.
at work in the world
So
too.
that he
I don't
did.
know.
It would
What's
already
that
be
mean?
destroyed.
I said, just keep in mind that if God is really real, he will have given us something to hang our hat on, and that book is it. That's just my 2 cents. But there is, I know King James there's a lot of trouble with him. He's royalty. He was a Freemason. There's 66 books of the Bible. There's definitely stuff missing, definitely. But we can find that stuff too, and that only just supports what's in the main book, like the Book of Enoch, which is a whole other deal.
Yeah,
But,
that's one of the apocryphal books that were removed. And all those books, they've got this common denominator, which is the story of the fallen angels, and essentially that,
Isn't that Lucifer?
Yeah.
well, it wasn't just Lucifer.
Oh, okay.
Remember, a third of all the living creatures in heaven fell with him.
Oh, okay. See, I didn't know that.
So we're talking about billions of entities.
Could that be the world? Could that?
They are more in control of the world than you realize. And we let them in by doing basically all the things that God would say, oh, don't do this, don't do that. I'm like, this is a no fun God. But actually, I come to realize it was for our own protection. To see these things, they're all around us. On a plane we cannot see. It's not a surprise. I mean, we have found 10 dimensions now in the world. Some of them are, we're now getting into subatomic, but it's...
You allow things to bleed through.
Okay.
You evoke it.
We gotta get moving on this because we're gonna have a tough time getting this done in 23 minutes. Okay. So we've got a 1,001 person nation. All right, sheepland. The nation is going to need regular people, doctors and lawyers and teachers. You got it, right?
Yep.
And we're also going to need a way to trade. We're going to we're going to agree upon a currency. We're not going to do it the old way where we actually trade gold. We are going to do what the United States did, which is create a fiat currency. Now, we used to at least have that paper backed by gold.
Yeah, where's it at?
We got off of that, and Nixon put the final nail into that coffin in 1971 or 72. So the nation's going to have a government. It's got a private sector and a public sector. And we're going to talk about, I'm going to be the banker because I'm an enterprising guy. I'm like, I'll handle the banking for this nation. Everyone's happy. No one suspects that I secretly want to take this country over, or I want my son to do it, or my descendants. Yet that's my plan, and I'm going to show you how to do it without anyone knowing about it. So the nation gets started. Our first day in business, we've got 1,000 people lined up outside the bank. The doctors need loans for their x-ray machines. The teachers need loans to go to college to get their certificate. The farmers need to buy combines. You get the picture?
Yeah.
All right, it's a full society.
Yep.
Everyone comes in and very easy credit, kind of like the early 2000s. $50,000 for you, $50,000 per person. That's how much the bank's going to loan everybody.
And how many people are there?
1,000 people. So we now have.
Am I writing this
So at
down?
the end of the first day, yeah, you got to be writing this down.
It's like
be
musical
calculating.
chairs.
At the end
Calculating
of the first day,
Calculating it.
1,000 people.
all right, at the end of the first day, how much money is in circulation in our society? Everyone now has come in, they've gotten a loan for $50,000.
So 50,000 times 1,000.
Right. $50 million is now in circulation. Okay? Everything seems great right now, right? People are trading, they're buying stuff.
50 million.
All right, now here's a few things that happen behind the scenes that are true for our country. The metaphor is going to be very parallel to the United States. The Federal Reserve Bank is not a federal institution. It's privately owned. It's actually privately owned by their 300 shareholders. They're, for the most part, all related by blood, and they're from an Eastern European ancestry. So I'm going to set up my private bank, and I'm going to call it the Federal Bank of Sheepland, all right? Now, the Sheepland government has a financial authority. It's called the Sheepland Treasury. Now, understand, we have our U.S. Treasury, and we've got the Federal Reserve Bank. We've got the same two in our little nation. Now, the $50 million that's in circulation at the end of the first day, where did that come from?
You made it.
I made it.
Right. It was
So what happened is the treasurer of Sheepland called me up, said, hey, we need to get some money in circulation. I'm like, sounds good. Let's do it. Very similar to the Social Security birth certificate thing you just pointed out, Sydney. There's a set dollar amount for every citizen in the United States of how much is in the
collateral.
Essentially, yes. The collateral, very important, is based on the work we do, and I'll tell you how that works.
I wondered that. What it was based upon.
We're going to get to it if you let me finish it.
Sorry.
We're cutting it close. All right. So here's what happened on that. The day before all these 1,000 loans were given out, the treasurer of Sheepland calls me up at the Federal Reserve. Dave, we need some cash. I'm like, great. He's like, we need $50 million. I'm like, great. I say to him, I'll send you the $50 million, but what, you got to back this up, man. I'm sending you $50 million. So the treasurer agrees to my plan, which is my private bank is going to handle the collection of the taxes from the population. And we will withhold the interest on the money we just gave you, and we'll send the rest to you guys at the end of each year. Treasurer's kind of dumb. He's like, okay. So we're going to say that we're going to charge 5% interest. And what is it that we're getting that is bearing this interest? So what does the Federal Reserve get from the United States, from the U.S. Treasury, when one of these transactions happens? You guys know?
Taxes, right?
Money.
In a sense, yeah. No, they get a T-bill, a Treasury bill. These are government securities. I mean, they go under a few different names, but essentially bonds, T-bills. They're very quote-unquote safe. They typically can earn from 3 to 7%, 0 to 7%.
Like if you open an account for just that and it has like interest throughout the years, if you just add money or keep money in
it's
there,
the same type of instrument.
Okay.
It is backed by quote unquote the government of the United States. Well, what is the government of the United States? What is it? How do we back that?
Right.
See, money is earned by our activity. The farmer's farming, the doctor is doctoring, and the teacher's teaching. All right? They get an income. And they pay taxes. Now there's a tax system. Because in 1913, remember, the 1913 Federal Reserve Act, this is when we actually lost the Revolutionary War. And it gets passed through Congress on December 23rd, when half of Congress is home for the holidays. Very critically, some people that would have voted this down and been in that room were not there. Because why?
Holiday.
They sunk on the Titanic. Specifically,
What
the
the-
Astor banking family. Now,
I
there's
wasn't
a reason
expecting that.
why
Holidays.
things like the Titanic, we're not taught to remember the Lusitania, but the Titanic, I think it was a message from history. Predictive
What?
programming, again, these guys follow the same MO throughout all of history.
The Titanic was actually rigged to do that?
Well, let me ask you this.
Just like 9/11
How about
was.
this?
The plane was. The
Go
boat
get a
was.
steel pan out of your kitchen,
Okay.
the thin kind.
Yeah.
Now go get ice. Any
Okay.
kind of, freeze it as hard as you want. You hit that pan over the, you do whatever you want with it. I don't care what kind of speeds you generate. You come to me and tell me when that ice cuts a 6-inch hole through thick metal.
Right.
All right, then we'll come back and talk.
Damn.
I mean, they're still giving us this with 9/11.
So was that the first
physics
thing that
break
happened
down when these guys
with
do.
the 9/11 stuff, where they set it all up like that, or was there things before?
If you've ever played with
history?
Legos, you know that a Lego tower cannot collapse in on itself
Oh,
at the
I
speed of a
already
falling bowling
researched
ball.
The holy hell out of it, so it's all good.
Because there's always a
There's
There's no way
point.
nobody
that
on
plane
through
could
history.
cut through that steel.
No,
Neither
that's
will
like a
we.
bullet hitting a
No.
big oak tree.
Yeah,
You're not
I
going to
know.
knock an entire
Scientifically-
oak tree down an hour. Come on.
I know, scientifically it didn't match
My
up.
point is, the Titanic might not just be this crazy, because 9/11 was
Coincidence.
foretold all over media, but the Titanic was also foretold
Right.
too.
I
Go-
never knew about that. I just knew the movie. Honestly.
20 years before the Titanic, a book came out called
Maybe
The
like in
Titan.
French Girls.
It was about the biggest ship in the world traveling from Europe to the United States. It has a sister ship, and it sunk with all the
Oh,
rich people on board.
wow.
15 minutes. All right, you guys got to help me out here.
Okay, go for it.
All right, now at the end of the
Calculators,
first day of our sheepland, there's now 50 million in circulation. The U.S. Treasury has just made an exchange with my bank. What has the sheepland Treasury given? They have given me $50 million worth of stock. T-bills, Treasury notes. You know, these are instruments, financial instruments. And these things generate interest for me at the rate of 5% a year.
Which is $3.5 million.
Okay,
Mature.
hold that thought. So, at the end of the first day, really, but at the end of the first year, and the Federal Reserve does it. So when we think of Internal Revenue Service, that's not a government agency either. It's actually a private collection agency for the private Federal Reserve.
Yes.
So on sheepland, if I'm going to give you all this money, I say to I negotiate the deal. This was the Federal Reserve Act. I'll collect the money, I'll keep my interest, and I'll send the rest to you guys. The people that had sold their souls voted on it. The ignorant idiots voted for it. And the people that were alert to this, like Charles August Lindbergh, the father, spoke out against it, but to no avail. So at the end of that first year,
2.5 million, not 3.5, sorry.
at the end of the first year, there's $50 million in circulation, but it's tax time, right? Now, we got 1,000 citizens, each earning $30,000 a year on average. So the cumulative income of the population of sheepland is $30 million. You following me? All right, what's the tax rate? We're going to charge 5% interest on. So I'm now going to go collect all the money of sheepland. Everyone has to pay their taxes. Coming into my bank is 20% of all the income. You guys following me?
Why is it now 20?
Because that's the average tax rate.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
It's not far from where it is in the United States. Now, something incredible just happened that the people don't realize. Because the day before tax day, how much is money in circulation?
50 million.
How much is owed to my bank?
30 million.
No.
3.5.
No.
53.
Oh, no, now it's
52.5.
$52.5 million is owed to my bank. But there's
Oh my
only
goodness.
50 million in circulation.
Good
Right,
math,
it's
Eric.
Wait a
game of
minute, wait a minute.
Musical chairs.
Exactly. By design,
Wow.
Everyone
the
loses.
system is meant to collapse at some point.
Wow.
So at the end of the first year, and actually we're going to speed this up a little bit, and we're going to,
Timeline.
yeah. We got to do at the end of the first year, I'm going to collect from 1,000 citizens 20% of $30 million. Because that's the income of the nation. 1,000 people times $30,000 each income.
Just $6 million.
That's $30 million times 20%, which is the tax rate. That means $6 million I'm collecting.
Collected
right?
for nothing.
So they send me $6 million. I'm sitting on it. Now I'm going to keep my now it doesn't really work like this. We're simplifying some things, but I'm going to keep the 5% on the 50 million I gave them. Okay? 5% of 50 million is 2.5 million. The people send me 6 million. I keep 2.5 million. I send 3.5 million back to the Treasury. Okay? This is sort of a problem already because let's keep playing this out.
Yeah, over time.
There's more debt owed than there's actually money in
Now
circulation.
it will only continue to get worse, and now it will happen where we will now need to get infusions of cash literally every day in order to keep cash flow in order for us to be liquid as a nation. And when that does not happen, what happens? We get government shutdowns. Not so much like the one happening now, but the ones that have been closing libraries and museums. You know, we've had 5 or 6 of them, and it's because the cash from the Federal Reserve has not been released to the U.S. Treasury. All right.
Wow.
So at the end of this first year, they're already in a no-win situation. There will never be but let's keep going. So how much is in circulation at the end of the first year in the society?
50 million.
No.
Oh, because they gave 6 million back. So 44 million.
What's in circulation at the end of the first year is 47.5 million.
Oh, because the 2.5 million. All right. Gotcha.
The only thing that is left circulation is the interest I charged on the 50 million worth of T-bills, the 5% interest. So the 2.5 million I've now taken out of circulation. That's my money. It's mine. Everything else still in. So now there's only 47.5 million in circulation after the first year. Where are we at the 10th year? This goes on for a decade.
Well, it's 25 million. 2.5 million times 10 is
Wow.
25.
So at the end of 10 years, half of the money supply is out of circulation. Just so you guys know, the Great Depression was caused because the central bankers withheld a mere 30% of the cash to the U.S. Treasury. That kicked off the Great Depression. Now,
Wow.
I'm working with the government. In fact, I'm the guy that's actually financing. I'm paying for all the campaigns of our politicians. And I want them to be my friend because it's through a litany of them that I'm going to end up taking over the world.
Yep.
And what are they? They're easy to sell. They're easy to buy.
Yeah.
I will pay for your presidential campaign. President gets elected. He's popular. But where does the real power come from?
When you
All of a sudden, the
sign the
president
laws.
has to make 100 appointments. The judges, the head of the FDA, the head of the EPA, the head of the... All these are appointments. Now, do you think the president knows all these people? No. This list of names, the people that run this nation, the ones that are made by a
given to
president...
them.
It's given to them by who?
Are they as puppet strings?
Federal Reserve.
These are all puppets. Puppets upon puppets. There's only one puppet master at the end of the day.
Okay.
Now, these guys would be the Illuminati. They would be the establishment. They would be the ones in the secret societies. Some of them might be the bloodline family members.
Okay,
that,
I was going to ask that. Yeah.
so there are many different
Prestigious
factions of
schools.
this cabal. So at the end of 10 years, we have now, our nation is 50 million in debt. We still owe 50 million to these bankers. We only have 25 million in cash. Now, in banking parlance on a balance sheet, that is a horrible acid test.
So we're enslaved.
Where your liabilities are
25 million.
twice your assets. Not a good scenario. So it's the end of the 10th year. Budget tightenings going on all over sheepland. I'm the treasurer. We need more money in circulation. We need $25 million more to get to our sweet spot. Treasurer of sheepland calls me up at my bank. Dave, private banker, federal. I mean, it's called federal. He's like, we need $25 million more to get to our sweet spot. I'm like, okay. I go print off $25 million more. I send it to the Treasury, armored car. They then get that circulating again. That from there goes to banks, goes to government institutions, which has payrolls. And now there's money flowing. We're back to our sweet spot where we were 10 years ago. How much money is now owed to these bankers?
75 million.
75 million is now owed. There's 50 million in circulation. And here again, how much the first year, the 11th year, how much are the bankers going to keep now? What is, there's 75 million that we have T-bills for now, right? What's 5% of 75 million?
It's 3.75, so whatever that is.
Is that, Mr. Calculator?
3,750,000.
That is right.
3.75 million? Thank
yeah.
you.
Thank you.
It would be half of
Okay.
7.5.
Big brains on
So
it.
how much is my bank keeping now then?
3.7.
Now we're keeping 3.75 million. So you're understanding, 10 years ago when I was replenishing the treasury, they were at least getting 2.5 million. Now they're only getting 1.25 million. I mean, they can't even fill their coffers as quickly. So I'm now keeping 3.75 million a year. We do this for a decade. We're now 20 years out. How much is in circulation in sheepland by the 20th year?
Half, right?
Well, it's
Have that.
$37.5 million that's gone. So you're looking
1.75?
at 12.5 million
Yep.
in circulation.
Okay. 12.5 in
So your
circulation.
3/4 of your money is gone.
Now remember, the Great Depression was caused when we were down to 70% in circulation. So let me just tell you this. Our nation is not even going to make it to the 20th year without the Treasury guy calling me up for even more money. But let's just assume they make it. All right? Because at 20 years out now, there's only 12.5 million in circulation of sheepland. I mean, people are starving, homelessness. People are out of jobs. They can't pay their
Potato
bills.
sacks.
It's a domino, unending domino effect. So how much money does the U.S. Treasury ask for in year 20 to get back to their sweet spot?
37.5 million.
37.5 million. Let's just round it.
That would make 50 million.
All right, so let's 37. We're going to need your calculator now.
I
So
got you.
now how much is owed to the bank after
$100 million.
it's over a little over 100 million?
And you're out of cash.
75 plus 37.5, so we've got 112.5, correct?
Yep.
All right, I'm now owed the bank, my private bank, my net worth is 112.5 million. What's the net worth of the entire nation right now? What's in circulation?
12.5.
Well, 50 million.
Well, 50 million. We got our
Oh,
50
got
million back. How much is now owed? 101?
$112.5 million.
So, and what's the difference between that?
The
That is our debt.
$61.5 million.
I don't want to know our debt right now.
Me neither.
I'm like
Broken
literally.
down per person,
20 trillion something.
our debt in the United States breaks down to $60,000 per person. That means if you bought nothing else, no food, no nothing, no car, no gas, 2 years of straight money just going right to these guys would get us back.
This
Can
is
we
only-
buy our
this
way
is
out
only
then?
21
No.
years
What if
into
we're
our
under
island.
the radar?
What if
There-
we're just like, here's 60,000. I want no part in your game no more. Leave me alone.
Then you go to jail.
They are going to do, the Bible said they will do that because
Really?
there will be a day where,
Gotcha.
remember,
Need
the
to revolt.
Rockefellers, what did they tell Aaron Russo? We want to get the population chipped so we can control them. Well, the book of Revelation said there will be a day where this chipping comes in. And what
Right.
will they do if you don't want to be part of the system?
Like
they'll
a
just-
scan.
I'll
kill
zap ya.
myself.
you will not
I'm
be able
not
to
trying
buy
to
or
say.
sell.
I'm not trying to
We're
promote that,
turning
but I would
into
kill myself before I would
Idiocracy,
let
the
that
movie.
happen.
Okay, so at the end of the 20th year, we've now gotten back to, I'm going to need you to recall the numbers I've given you.
All right, so it's $112.5 million that
All right.
we're in
so
debt
what
to
is
the banks.
5%
Of that,
of 112.5 million?
would it be 5%?
It's going to be about
60
60
something.
something million. No,
Okay.
no, 5%.
Come on, calculator people.
62.
Well, it doesn't
something.
go up that far.
Yeah.
The calculator only has like 8 digits on it.
They did it on purpose.
Yeah.
No,
I know.
it's
They're
they.
watching
It's
us.
they again. No.
12 million.
We have to upgrade to a
divided by-
college calculator
Look at
to be
me
able to figure this
clapping.
one out. This isn't a Dollar Tree steal we can just get
So
away
you're
with.
looking at 11 million, some odd, $11.7 million.
That
No.
seems high. It should be over 6 million. So let's just say,
60.
what do we owe the bankers right now in total?
112.5
112.5. So just take 112 times, just give me a 0.5. That's it. It's going to be 6 million and
$5.6 million is what it says here. That ain't right. It's going to be a little over $6 million. 6.7.
Where'd this
$1 million.
calculator come from?
This calculator is like fucking 40 years old, man.
I
Sorry
think it was made at
Right, like
Sorry
it's
about
supposed
that.
to be white, but it's all yellow and shit. Like you can tell it's seen a
Sorry about
flat
the
day.
F-bomb, guys.
All right.
We're doing our best
Here's my
here.
point. Is we're
It's a
now
lot
in
of money.
we're in the year of the 20th to the 30th year, and the amount that I'm withholding from the Treasury is all of the tax burden of the entire. It's built on the labor of the people.
It's slavery.
All the tax dollars I'm now keeping, everything now that goes to the Treasury from here on forward, all of it now this begins to accelerate because they're getting all they're getting are my loans. Because the 6 million in annual, remember,
Money
income
doesn't
has not
exist
changed,
anymore at that
population
point.
has not grown. We have 1,000 people earning $30,000 a year. That's 30 million, and their tax rate is still 20%, meaning I'm still collecting my 6 million. But now,
It's probably more than that now, though.
no,
right?
because
Oh, no, because you're 5%.
the assumptions of the society is it remains very flat. The tax revenue is more than the tax revenue is 6 million, but I'm owed more than 6 million every year.
Right.
Well, guess what? Now that debt starts, now we get into a hyperbolic curve because we do this for another 30 years. 112 million at roughly, that's 5% of that is going to get us just over $6 million. So there's going to be zero left in circulation at the end of the 30th year.
Yep.
Certainly long before then.
So you got to borrow 50 million.
I'm now getting calls from the
now
Treasury.
Now you're at 170
literally,
million.
it breaks down to the point where those calls are coming in every single day.
Right.
So we always talk about the debt of this nation, national debt. Do you know who the national debt is to?
The people.
Who? What people?
Federal banks.
No.
We owe it.
The government doesn't owe you anything.
Federal banks.
Oh, me. Yeah, they don't owe us anything.
Who does this nation owe all of this money to that everyone talks about on the news?
The federal
The
banks.
Vatican.
Oh.
Isn't it like England that took us over?
The Federal Reserve Bank.
Right, exactly.
Now they will do business under a lot of different banners, so you don't see on the balance sheet in the pie chart Federal Reserve Bank. Remember, these guys, they are the funnel system to the Goldman Sachs, the Morgan Stanley.
They own everything.
The investment banking houses. What do those houses do? Well, they put the money in to the businesses that they want. So if I'm the banker of this society, everyone now needs me. Because if I decide to cut them off, they're effed. I'm rolling in money. My net worth is now hundreds of millions of dollars. The net worth of the people's negative. Now, what have I done to become the king of the people? I did nothing but run a printer.
Right.
This is what happened.
You created something out of
We
nothing.
did not have gold-backed currency. And see, it's a free society, okay? So if someone starts a newspaper that I don't like that's maybe talking out against me, I might call in their loan, or I might invest in 20 newspapers to drown him out. I guarantee you, I'm going to own the media system. Who do you think the military is going to go to? Where do they get their funding? And at the end of the day, I'm the one getting a call in the background. Yeah. That's why they talk about Philip de Rothschild as every dollar that's in circulation or that has ever been in circulation is debt owed back to the Rothschilds. And right now, every dollar in circulation in every nation but 3 on this planet, they are 3 nations away from total world domination.
North,
South Iran, North Korea, and Cuba.
Cuba, yeah.
I think they got Cuba squared away, which means we will be at war with Iran and or North Korea.